extraordinary. We do a lot of public meetings, and to have the turnout that we had here and the enthusiasm and the amount of public engagement was really heartwarming, and I really want to applaud the city for coming out and having the kind of volunteerism. We don't often see that, especially in a city of this size. So I think that you all should be commended for taking your personal time and taking the kind of investment that you put into a project like this. And so I want to thank you again for taking your time this evening to join us and participating in this process. And you know, for those of you that have joined us for the last 2 community meetings, one of my favorite words is participation. So the fact that you've come back again tonight, you know that that's going to be part of our process again this evening. So the fact that you're here and you haven't yet run out the door says that you're hopefully looking forward to joining in that again tonight, because there will be some activities that include that as well this evening. So just to quickly go over the agenda for this evening, again, we just had a little welcome. I'm going to do a quick review of the Competitive Florida Partnership Program for those of you that have been here with us for the last 2 meetings. I know it will be repetitive, but I always like to kind of go over the program. There are usually people in the crowd that have not participated in some of the other meetings, and I think it's kind of important that we give an overview so that those that haven't had the opportunity to participate get an opportunity to catch up and kind of understand how we got to where we are today. I'll be brief at this point, just to kind of catch them up, and certainly anybody that has not participated to this point can get with either Vinny or I after the meeting and get more information about it, but I just want to give an overview so that folks that haven't been able to be here can understand why we're here. I'll give a little bit of an overview of the last 2 community conversations that we've had. We're going to talk about a refined vision. If you recall, you were here the last 2 meetings. We have been working on kind of defining what an economic development vision could be for the city of Dunnellon. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about some economic development initiatives, doing a little bit of brainstorming. This is where you can throw darts at kind of some of the ideas that Vinny and I have been working on behind closed doors, some of the things that we've taken away from what we've heard from you, and some suggestions that we could start putting together and putting pen on paper and start putting into what an economic development strategy and an action plan could look like for the city of Dunnellon. You could look at some of the proposals that we put forward and say, that doesn't make any sense to us at all. This is what we're here for this evening. You're not going to hurt our feelings, but it helps to guide us and give us a little more direction for some of the strategies that we will put into the plan going forward. But at least if you can kind of see some of the different ideas that we're starting to extract from some of the comments that we've heard from you, that's what we want to get out of some of the things that we put out pen on paper before you this evening. We're going to talk again about stakeholder involvement, stakeholder engagement. So the fact that you're here tonight, that's part of stakeholder engagement. I know several of you have participated in all of these meetings. I hope again to see you participate in the asset mapping exercise, which we'll talk about at length at the end of the meeting today, which is the next step in the process. And then beyond that, continuing to participate in the actual implementation of the economic development strategy itself and the action plan. We're also going to have a hands-on public participation component of the SWOT analysis. And I think we talked about this at the last meeting. How many of you know what a SWOT analysis is? Some of you. So that SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we're going to be taking a look, a little bit of a harsher look, if you will, at your community. What are the things that makes Dunnellon great? What are the things that maybe some challenges that are sitting out there that we can improve upon, that kind of helps to move Dunnellon to the next level. And so we'll kind of put some pen on paper. We've got some of the giant Post-it notes, if you will, where we can put some of those things down and start to be able to analyze how we can try and actually look at your strengths and say, how can we build on that? Not just that necessarily even talking about economic development itself, but just from the broader level of Dunnellon, period. And then we're going to talk about the asset mapping exercise, which is really the crux of the Competitive Florida Partnership Program, and that is going to be upon us here in about 2 weeks' time. And then we'll talk about what happens, the next steps in the overall process. So I know that's a healthy agenda for us, and as you've seen from me over the last couple of months, I try to keep us to that 2-hour agenda. So fortunately, I'm a fast talker, so I'll try to temper it where I keep us on schedule, but don't talk too fast where I lose you along the way. So if I start to speed up, somebody just wave me down, and we'll try and keep it to a pace that helps everybody understand. So for those of you that haven't participated in the program, the Competitive Florida Partnership Program is a program that was developed when Governor Bush was in office, and he recognized that the rural communities were really at an economic disadvantage for being able to compete with some of the larger communities, and really just felt like needed to kind of put some tools in place where some of the state's resources could be directed towards coming in and helping communities to look at some of the assets that are already in place and understanding how the state can help build off of those assets that are in the community. So by assets, it's not just talking about the physical community, not just talking about your rivers and your parks and your physical community, but also talking about your leadership, and also talking about your civic organizations, and also talking about what does Dunnellon have to offer? What is in your community? What libraries, what churches, what businesses are already located there? What other businesses could locate in Dunnellon that would be complementary to other businesses here? And by bringing in other state resources, by bringing in state agencies that could identify those partnerships for you, they could help leverage those relationships for Dunnellon. And so they created this program called the Competitive Florida Partnership Program, where the state comes in and helps to map the leverages and identify those partnerships and show you where to get funding and where those linkages can occur. And so this program really came about through Jeb Bush, through Governor Bush, and we've been lucky to work on a couple of these programs. And so through the help of Vinny, we get to work with Josh Askey, who you'll meet on April the 4th. And we'll be guiding you through the process, but really, you become the crux of the development team here, of this project team. Without you, the state doesn't even want to participate in this process. Because when we leave, and when the state leaves, this program means absolutely nothing if you put the document on the shelf and you don't continue on with the implementation of the strategy that is put together here. Does that make sense? The state does not want this to be another document, and I've heard this through the last 2 community conversations that we've had, that you've done this process before, right? Who's participated in the, I don't even have to finish the sentence and I'm already seeing hands, right? Who's participated in the visioning process here before and have seen these documents just collect dust on the shelf and nothing ever happens? The state does not want that to happen. The state wants there to be specific action items with specific time frames, and they want specific people, organizations, entities identified that are going to be the point people that are going to make those actions happen. So unlike some of the other visioning documents, economic development strategies, this type of project that you've seen before, this one is going to have somebody that is going to be teed up to implement those action items. So it may be a little bit different than something that you've seen before, but unless you as a community choose to be the cheerleader of those action items, then it will end up being the same type of document that you've seen before. So the burden is on you to be the most important portion, the team member of this project. So here's the schedule. We started it in January. We had our first community conversation, and we will wrap up in technically in June. the state, our obligation to the state ends actually in May, but just schedule-wise, we'll come to adoption and adoption hearing or acceptance hearing with the city council in June. But it's a pretty quick process, but it's a pretty thorough process. At the end of the day, you'll end up with a pretty healthy document that gives you, as I said, very specific action items with goals of, not really goals, objectives, and strategies, but strategy items and specific actionable projects for things that you can do. You can choose to take them on, you don't have to take them on, but it'll give you a whole bevy of things to try and make economic development happen in Dunnellon. So here's some photographs from community conversation number 1. We had a pretty healthy turnout. Lonnie, if I remember, maybe we had 45, 50 people at the first turnout. It was a pretty good group. Some of you that were at that meeting, you may recall that I challenged you to bring a friend or a neighbor, and I was pretty impressed because we did. We doubled. We maybe had 75, 80 people. Do you remember, Jimmy? At the second meeting, which is, again, a pretty healthy turnout. And so I'm hoping that I see people trickling in, and I want to thank you guys for coming up to the front. So, I wish I brought prizes, but next time. But the last meeting, we got a lot of really good information. Those of you that were here at the last meeting, if you recall, we spent a lot of time talking about the asset inventory. And so what we were tasked to do as part of the process with the state is to identify the things that are in Dunnellon that you deem important. So by identifying the assets within Dunnellon, you can see in the top right photograph, for those of you that weren't here at the last meeting, we started to put together a list of the areas in Dunnellon that you as a community would like the state to focus on when they come here on April 4th. So you'll see on that list the food banks, the public library, obviously the airport is an important asset, the rivers are an important asset, and so we've put together this entire list, and we'll be sending that to the state this week. We'll be sending that to the state this week, and then the state will actually go through that list and will identify state agencies that they will partner or try and find representatives from those state agencies that are available on April the 4th to come down to be able to link up with those types of resources, so that if we have a historic resource, the depot, for example, obviously an important resource in your community, right? So if we have somebody from the Department of State Division of Historical Resources, obviously we would like them to come and visit the depot because they may have funding opportunities that would be beneficial. Or if we have representatives from Visit Florida that could come, that would be a great opportunity for them to come and visit the depot, right? Does that make sense? I'll pause for a minute and see if anybody has questions about it, because I know it's a lot of information. It will make more sense when you all come participate on April 4th, I promise you, because you're all going to come on April 4th, right? Yes, ma'am. All right, that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. Unfortunately, it's in the daytime. We don't get to set the time. The state sets the time. It's from 9 until 12:30. Believe me, I actually tried to get them to come on Saturday, and the state is the state. So we got 9 to 12:30 on April the 4th. So
it's cooler in the morning to run around animals.
It is.
That's your stuff.
What's that?
That's yourself.
That is. It's cooler in the morning. We'll take any time that you have available to participate, even if you can only come give an hour of your time and join us for some of it. It's really a great opportunity, and the more of you that can come participate in that, it will mean more to you. You will be more vested in the overall project if you participate in it, because it will make more sense to you. So I would encourage you, if you can slip away from your schedule for a portion of that time, it would be beneficial for the whole project.
Allison, didn't you say you wanted to have them RSVP so we make sure we have the number of correct number of volunteer drivers and that kind of stuff, so.
Yes, ma'am. I was going to bring it up at the end, but I'm happy to mention it more than once throughout this presentation. So the state does ask that we have RSVPs for the asset mapping, partially because what they try to do in advance is match up the people with the state agencies. Particularly if you have a particular interest, if there are, how many people, and I'm gonna just pick on the depot just because it's fresh on my mind and because it's Vinny's favorite one. How many people are interested in participating in the group that goes to the depot? Okay, so if I know that you want to be in the group that goes to the depot, then if you RSVP and say, please, I know that only 5 people can be in the group that go to the depot, but if I possibly could be one of those people, it's not going to be you, Vinny, but if I know that I can be one of those 5 people, and then they can pair you with the representative that they send from the Department of State, Division of Historical Resources, then it helps them to put that grouping together. Does that make sense? Rather than putting you with the Water Management District when you have no interest in being with the Water Management District. So, yes?
Question, so tonight are we going to kind of pick the 10 things, 5 things, whatever it is we're going to be looking at to get different agencies to come in so that we could tell citizens, okay, we're going to be doing, you know, the train depot, the water shed, the churches, the restaurants. I'm making stuff up.
So we did that at the last meeting, and it should be, other copies of that tonight's presentation?
Presentation, yes.
Okay, so there's only that clip in there, right? So we can send out the asset mapping list. When it's finalized this week, I will send that to you, the one that will actually go to Josh. And that will have the list, the specific list.
And then
and then you can see the actual list. But the state will actually go through that list and may or may not pick everything that's on the list.
Right,
so you'll have an idea. Right.
How far will you know that?
I won't know until the state comes. Yes. It's an Easter egg hunt. They'll come and they will say, Miss Valerie, you are going to be in group number 6. Okay. And here you go, and you may or may not get the training. Okay. That's cool.
I might suggest, because like we have people that help manage that train depot that are here and have access to the buildings and stuff, might be certainly appropriate people to have in that group. Or if anybody has a particular interest, Lonnie and I can help if you want to email us or email Allison. We can help Allison at least try to begin to develop that list. So if that particular asset is on the list, then we may be ready to go and already have those people identified.
So what will happen in advance is once the state, I guess what will happen this year, they did change the program, is that we will be tasked with calling the assets and letting them know that we will be coming to visit. In prior years, we didn't call the assets. We just showed up, and it was a very awkward situation on all accounts. So
what is the date?
It'll be April the 4th. It's a Thursday from 9 till 12:30. April the 4th, Thursday, from 9 till 12:30. But in years gone by, they never called the assets. They did ask us to give all the names and phone numbers this year. So it may be a cleaner process. So I'll get with Josh and just clear up that. Any other questions before we carry on here? So, the last meeting, we talked about the vision. Well, both meetings, we talked about developing a vision. And if you recall at the last meeting, we took a stab at drafting a vision. And you all gave me feedback on the initial vision. So, we talked about the difference between creating a vision and creating a strategy. And I explained, and you can read it here, that the vision is really, you know, what do you want the community to look like? Like, what is the big picture? Versus the strategy, which is really the implementation of that. What are you going to do to make the vision happen? Do you understand the difference there? Is that pretty clear? The vision is the big picture. The strategy is how are you going to get there? So this is my attempt at the revised draft vision. And you'll see that I added in the word historic, if you recall, and I'm not showing you both versions because I don't want you to focus on the last one. Let's focus on this new one, right? But I did add in historic. I heard a lot of comments that I left out the word historic and that the history of Dunnellon was very important. And I don't see Rich here this evening, but for those of you that were here last meeting, I made the commitment that I was going to read the book, right?
Yes.
I read the book, stem to stern. I read the entire book. For those of you that will be here on March the 20th, there is the book signing at the depot.
No,
It's been changed.
It's been changed?
That's the library.
Or in the library. But it's not
The
on the
date
20th
got
now?
changed to March 19th.
Don't tell Lonnie that. Don't tell Lonnie that.
No, we changed the last time.
We didn't hear that, Lonnie. We didn't hear
Didn't hear
that.
a thing. Never happened.
That never happened.
Overcome, adapt,
We're fine.
keep going.
We're fine.
March 20th was canceled, right?
Yes.
Just making sure.
Because of that initial book signing.
Well, that's kind of good because it was spring break.
So, I read the book. For those of you that haven't read the book, I would really encourage you to read the book. I learned a tremendous amount. So if anybody sees Rich, please pass that on to him, that I made the commitment that I was going to read the book. Thank you, Teresa. I don't know where she is. She stepped away. She was kind enough to lend me her copy of the book, and I would encourage all of you. It was very, very interesting, and it did shed a lot of light and background information into the history of Dunnellon. And my colleague here has committed to reading the book as well, but I would encourage you to read it. So the history, it was crystal clear to me that it's very important to have this community developed and really factors into the future as well. So you'll see I offered that in there. I'll pause for a minute. I know y'all can read. I'll pause and take any feedback on this revised draft vision. Or if you think that we've kind of moved into a vision that you think we can live with here, then give me a thumbs up, and I got one thumbs up. 2, 3, 4. So far, so good?
Yeah, looks good.
No major objections? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I assume it will be touched on in more extent later, but the last two sentences sort of are very nice, but they don't really tell you a whole lot.
The last sentence, Dunnellon seeks to enhance its economy by
By diversifying employment opportunities for its citizens, that's the only way you're going to do it anywhere, but it doesn't really
Right.
give a lot of information.
That's a great point. So I think what you'll see, and correct me if I'm wrong as we move forward into this presentation this evening, when we get into the brainstorming for economic development initiatives, and you start to see some of the proposed action items,
That should help.
let's see if that answers your question. Please tell me your name.
Marianne.
Marianne. Okay, please tell me when we get to that point if that hits on some of this for you, okay?
Thank you.
So strategy, we talked about that. That's the action items. So let's see if we move into kind of hitting some of those for you. So what kind of came to light to me as I sat down and started kind of trying to put my arms around the comments that we've heard at these meetings and start to broadly put together an economic development strategy for Dunnellon is some overarching strategic themes. We want to support your businesses, right? And that's not only supporting your existing businesses, but it's also supporting new business coming to town, correct? We all agree on that? We want to support your workers, and that's not only supporting your current workers, but it's supporting future workers. We talked about the youth, right? Keith or Kevin?
Kevin.
So close. Supporting quality of life, right? We all agree that we want to support the quality of life here, right? We don't want it to go backwards. We don't want it to go downhill. We may disagree on what quality of life means a little bit, but we want quality of life, right? So they're kind of broad, overarching themes, but in general, those are the three buckets that I think that we can put our brainstorming initiatives into. Everybody agree? So then I broke it down into, let's kind of have some goals. So we've got themes, which are the overarching ideas, and then we go into the next category. And forgive me, but my background is in land use planning, so I deal with comprehensive plans all the time. So we have goals, objectives, and policies. So when I start to look at things like this, I've got themes, I've got goals, and then we're going to get into like the initiatives or the strategies. So goals, we want to retain existing businesses. We don't want to bring in new business at the detriment to the existing businesses, right, Jerry? Right? We don't want to do that. Attract new businesses, right? We want new business to come, but we don't want to bring in new business so that other existing businesses go away. We want to promote entrepreneurship. We want our youth to have something to do, right? We want our youth, we want our middle-aged people to feel compelled to go and start their own business and to want to stay here and to want to be in Dunnellon. And we want infill. We want people to be here. We don't want people moving away because they don't feel that they have any opportunity to be here. Correct? Supporting our workers. So we have to have access to local employment opportunities. If there's no jobs here, where are they going to go? They're going to go to Ocala, right? How many times we've talked about this at all of the other meetings that we've had. We've seen it over and over and over again. Part of the problem is we don't have access to training, right? There needs to be a linkage between the work that's available and the training opportunities. So how can we strengthen the communication between the workforce, the needs of the workforce, and the jobs that are available? So let's look at some of those linkages that are there, and how can we make that happen? So these are just some broad goals, and then we move into supporting the quality of life. So we've talked over and over again. You guys are so blessed to have like the most beautiful natural resources in this area. And again, that book did a fantastic job highlighting your natural resources. Really, you're just very blessed to have the rivers that you have here. And you don't want that to go away. And we've talked over and over again about, the tubers and not, over utilizing the river, utilizing tourism to the detriment of the community. Like, how can we temper tourism, benefit from tourism, have tourism come in here, but have it be more than just hop on the river, hop off the river, and the tourists are gone, and they're not staying here and investing in the community and eating at the restaurants and not having any other experiences in Dunnellon, right? We don't want that. They don't want to just come, park their car, get in the tube, get out of the tube, and leave. Come and stay and spend the weekend. Where are they going to stay and spend the weekend, right? We've had these conversations. So let's look at ways that we can build on that. We want to maintain the character and the community assets that you have, right? But what is it about Dunnellon that we can build on? We've talked about the trails, right? You've got this trail network that is kind of underutilized. How can we build off the bicycle trail network or the horse trail network that you have? We talked, what's the gentleman's name that talked about the RVs or for the horse trail RVs? Get his name. Was it Rich? And being able to have a place where you can park your RV and spend the weekend and be able to take advantage of the horse trails. But when you don't have a place to stay, why would you come and do that? But you've got this network that's right there. There just isn't a reason for people to come and take advantage of it. So let's build off some of those assets that you already have. So this is when we move into kind of the initiative brainstorming. Can you all see that okay? Sometimes, it's tough with the lighting. I don't know why. Can we?
I did turn that one set of lights down. Will we turn the rest?
I don't know. Like, we can, do you want to play with one? Does this one next set drop down, or? You guys tell me if you can see better, or I feel like you're at the eye doctor
Well,
now,
it's
but
gonna be really dark.
better or worse?
Better.
One or
That's it, you got it down
two? Is that better? Can you see that better? Okay. So, again, these are just thoughts. These are just ideas. This is just kind of what comes to mind, looking at some of the things that I've heard from the meetings. And I will tell you, some of you have reached out to us personally outside of the meetings. Vinny and I spent a couple hours with some of you one-on-one, touring around the community one-on-one in our offices. I've been on the phone with several of you. I've had emails from several of you. I want to thank all of you that have personally taken the time to reach out to us and given us background information about, your thoughts or your experiences. That's all been very helpful to us. And so some of what you see here is based on some of the history that you've already been through. Some of it is ideas that we've seen from other communities. Some of it just makes sense, So,
You're gonna read it to us, I can see.
yeah. But, and the angle is probably also a little bit awkward when you're sitting from the side, too. So I certainly can, if you bear with my reading. My kids are 17 and 18 now, so I haven't done nighttime reading for a long time. But, and coming off daylight savings, I don't want to put any of you to sleep, but I'll do my best here. So, and just ignore, I want you to just kind of ignore the third column for a minute. I'll explain to you why those numbers just stop there, but that's just an example for you. But don't think that I didn't finish my work. It's really just an example. So,
I'm good, you gave me one, thank you.
oh, okay, anybody else need me to read? You really didn't want me to put you to sleep, did you? Anybody else need me to read it, or can everybody else see it okay? You need me to read it? Okay. So I won't read all of them, but I'll just give you some examples. How about that? So let's take number 2, for example, the Peer City Technical Assistance Program. So this is an idea where we look at another city that's of similar size to Dunnellon, and we see what they've done in terms of economic development. And we partner up with them, kind of like a sister city approach. Are you familiar with a sister city? And we say, what have you done to be successful? Like, what are you doing? And I haven't even gone so far as to look within the state of Florida and find a like city that has been successful in terms of economic development, because there's no sense in me wasting my time trying to find a city if you aren't interested in doing a program like this, right? But if you are interested in such a program, we can find a city and see what they've done and learn from their experiences. And I promise you, any other city in the state of Florida that has been successful will be happy to brag on themselves and tell you all the great things that they have done and why reinvent the wheel for Dunnellon. This is a simple thing that doesn't cost you any money to partner with them and learn from their experiences. There's an action item that can go in your strategic plan that one of you can easily champion, and you can check a box and say, look what we've done. Make sense? Right? It's a simple action item. Now, I promise you, all of the action items that go into your economic development strategy are not that simple. And what we're going to propose to you is a list that has some easy ones like this and some far more complicated ones. But we recognize that you don't have thousands or millions of dollars that you can dedicate to economic development projects. So it's important for us to be able to give you a full range. But that's an easy one that you can do, where you can get ideas from a peer city that can help you in a second. So an economic development strike force. Has anyone ever heard of that before? No. So it's, again, another simple one. And many communities that do this. Columbia County, I will use as an example. Columbia County has a strike force. They have a team that it's essentially Columbia County and the city of Lake City working together. When an economic development project comes to town, they have a group, and it's pretty much a set group all the time of the same individuals, public works director, the chamber. Important about Columbia County, some information that you can take away with you, but they are ready to go. They're not recreating the wheel anytime a new project comes to town. It's a very effective way, and they are on the ready every time a project comes to town. I don't know if you have something like this in place, but again, it's a simple thing to put together, and very effective when a project comes to town to be on the ready. Kevin? This one's for you, young entrepreneurs and professionals, right? So this is kind of getting your young entrepreneurs, your young people together and having them think about ways to stay. So not putting it on the adults to necessarily be the ones to be responsible for the kids, finding a way for them to stay, but having them create their own future. So you can have them create a think tank, have them participate in their own future, and help them to understand why they need to be here. And again, these are the free ones. These are free examples of things that you can do to help your community and help people invest. This goes back to the community engagement that I talked about earlier. This is helping your community be invested and want to participate in your own future and not have a plan where it just sits on the shelf. But you all have to make the commitment to want to make some of these things happen. We can give you the tools and we can tell you how to get there, but if you don't pick up the ball and move it forward, then it's just going to sit there.
Allison.
Ma'am.
My daughter is a senior this year, and last year they had a group of our Dunnellon high school kids that were nominated by the different teachers, and they took them out into the county to show them the different industries that we have, the hospitals, the horse industry, some of the manufacturing. But to your point, they never came inside Dunnellon because we have nothing. So there's something there that we can pigtail on, whatever I just saying is, and help us take those Dunnellon high school students in Westport, and even, and bring them into, and have them do exactly what you just said, get them involved and to see where they want to be in 15 years from now, see what kind of careers they can go into, be it vocational or be it a college degree and then come back.
It's a little different than telling kids what to do.
No, but
right.
To show them
Right.
what there is, and then let them see what they might want to do and how they can work in their community.
Right.
But then they never came into the city of Dunnellon.
Yeah. There's just missed opportunities all around. There's just missed opportunities. So again, here's some other opportunities. I had a number of people talk to me about the Main Street program. You see a lot of heads nodding.
We were on it at the very beginning.
Yeah. Anybody hopes that the Main Street program never comes back? Okay. So, I had a lot of people wishing that the Main Street program, I couldn't tell if everybody was just quietly telling me, hey, the Main Street program should come back, but I don't really want to say it out loud. But I couldn't find in anybody's notes a reason why it shouldn't come back. So, I called it an economic development program, but I put in parentheses, you see under number 10, maybe revive the Main Street program. When I was in university, I grew up in Canada, I think I may have mentioned that to you before, but when I was in university, my work-study program my very first program was creating a Main Street program in downtown Toronto. So I am passionate about that. I will talk to you about that all day long. I think there is a huge benefit to it. I think that you have a great opportunity in this town to do something with that. And from all the comments that we've received about that, I think you have a lot of people in this town that are passionate about that. I'm not 100% clear why that fell apart, but I think that there's an opportunity to potentially bring that back. So if that's something that you're interested in, it's potentially worthy of putting it in your economic development strategy. A cost comparison study. So I know I'm jumping all around here. So number 7. So we could do, or you could do, as part of your economic development strategy, one of the initiatives that we put in there is do a cost comparison study. Look at another city that's the same size as Dunnellon. Look at what it costs to do business here versus what it costs to do business somewhere else. Maybe you don't realize that the rents that you're charging in Dunnellon are significantly higher than the rents that another like city are charging, and that by virtue of what you're doing here, you're shooting yourselves in the foot and you don't even realize it, that you're chasing business away just inadvertently. This is a common economic development strategy, just to do this kind of cost comparison study. Again, it's relatively simple, it's relatively inexpensive, but it's very eye-opening, and it also is an excellent marketing tool. So if a business is looking to come to your community and they're comparing, looking at coming to you or coming to one of your neighboring communities, you flash those two things, it can make a very quick decision for a company very easily. So you guys kind of get where we're going with some of these initiatives? Is this making sense as to what is going to go into the types of things that would go into the economic development strategy? Do you think this is a complete waste of time and that you've spent 3 nights of your lives listening to me talk that you wish you could get back? I don't see anybody, nobody's running out the door yet, so I'm thinking I'm okay, but I don't know for sure. So let me talk a little bit about this third column here, the theme and goal, and I'll go back one slide. I've got these little numbers, 1.1, 1.2, 2.2. I'll go back. So 1.1, retain existing businesses. So the 1 refers to the overarching theme of supporting businesses, right? 1.1 is the goal of retaining existing businesses. So when I go to this slide here, and I look at the landlord education program, which is an initiative that would be supporting landlords and helping landlords understand, hey, here's some, and you'd be surprised the number of landlords that just don't understand basic property management. Again, another simple tool that can help your community and also keep down the cost of code enforcement. The theme/goal column on the far right, that 1.1 ties back to supporting the overarching goal of supporting businesses, and then the theme of supporting thank you, retaining existing businesses, and the theme of supporting your businesses. Does that make sense? So that's how it would lay out there. All of the ones that it would support would be listed in that column. But if you hated these initiatives, I wasn't going to spend the time to fill this out. In the actual economic development strategy, they would all be listed here. So then you would have a benchmark, and you could go back and see, you know, what does this initiative actually tie back to? Does that make sense? So in the actual economic development strategy, there would not be just 15. I just put this in here as a sample for you so that you would get a general idea of what we are proposing your economic development strategy would look like. Thumbs up, thumbs down, you think we need to go in a completely different direction? Does this make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
No.
I have my own comment on the cost comparison study.
Yes.
Because we're a tri-county area.
Okay.
As Dunnellon, the city of Dunnellon has one set of rules, Bush County has another set of rules, Marion County has another set of rules, and Union County. So those all work together, but no one works together, all separate. So that kind of makes it difficult to bring some of those cost comparisons together.
Yes. So when a company comes in and they want to go right outside the city limits, do we have any jurisdiction over them at all?
Not at all.
Not at all. They go to Marion County or Citrus County or Lee
Now,
County.
once anybody's outside of our governing body, the area, they can, what they're gonna do whatever that area, deems reasonable. 10-foot sign versus us only having a 3-foot sign.
So a business across the street here has one set of rules, and the other side of the bridge is another set of rules. Historic district even has a different set of rules.
Well, yeah, even in town, we got the historic district.
Right, it's all
Right.
different.
Commercial.
And that's what I like about, I call it I'm gonna show my age, the wagon, not the wagon wheel, when you moved into a neighborhood,
Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, welcome, I'm sorry guys,
We're the same age apparently.
Yeah, I woke up at 3 this morning and flew at 5, so I'm happier. But anyway, but I like having something like that for just what you're saying is, yeah, we know you can have a 10-foot sign over there, but with your 3-foot sign over here, Lonnie's going to tell you, or the chamber's going to tell you, we're going to have events here, we're going to get 10,000 people, every other weekend or whatever it might be. So these are our positives that we have versus you going across the river with a 10-foot sign. I mean, so if we had that welcome wagon kind of theme, that would make a lot of sense for a business coming to Bonnie and saying, hey, I'm thinking about opening up a travel agency. I don't know.
So just to add on that, so part of the whole Walmart deal was to add Dunnellon annex to that section, wasn't it?
We did. We annexed, the city of Dunnellon did annex in, and we tried doing it when Lowe's was going to come. And, would that have been good, would that have been bad, I don't know, but it got shut down, so we never really kind of found out. So we can't go across river really and annex, but we can definitely always look at annexing.
So we could expand a little bit, possibly.
But yeah, we can go out to 200.
Is that your annexation move?
That's how I do it. I'm punchy right now.
So in general, again, the same thing, small area for governing body versus large area of residence. And so it's kind of a discord between the two sometimes. It's hard to get them all on the same page, it's a little difficult, so bringing that together might help.
Yeah, so Vinny made a note of it, and I understand what you're saying, and I'll see if there's a way, I'll see if I can find an example of another area that has a similar kind of challenge. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So essentially this is it in a nutshell, right? You've got your goals, you've got your initiatives, and then you've got your actions, right? So, I know this is everybody's favorite part of the program. We're going to move into the SWOT analysis. So this is where I need everybody's participation. This is where I need you to tell me about the good, the bad, and the ugly of Dunnellon, right? And everybody's got it, right? Not everybody thinks this is a 100% glorious place to live, or do you? And on the table, the city has charged us with asking this question. So this isn't a consultant coming in and saying, hey, tell me what's bad about it. The city wants to know. The city has asked. They want to know so that they can help try and make things better. So put it on the table. This is the opportunity to put it on the table. They can't fix it if they don't hear what's wrong with it, okay? And it's actually written into the grant requirement for the state of Florida, for the Competitive Florida Partnership, which is not typical for the Competitive Florida Partnership grant. So the city took it one step further and asked the state of Florida to make it a requirement of the Competitive Florida Partnership grant that this SWOT analysis be done. So they committed to having this done. This is not the city just saying, oh, tell us what's wrong and then sweep it under the rug, just so that you are perfectly clear that they're taking this seriously. So please, if I can encourage you to just, speak your mind. They really want to hear what's wrong so that it's the first step in trying to find ways to address it and make it better. Okay? Yes?
So is this a good time to say something we think Dunnellon should have, like if they're weakness?
Let's start with the positive. Okay? Let's start with the positive. So quick refresher, and I know you probably can't read that again because I jumped ahead prematurely and asked Lonnie to turn on the light, but I'll read this. Strengths, we're going to talk about strengths. So what are Dunnellon's strengths? These are your competitive advantages. So higher education levels, which we were really impressed when we looked at the data. You have pretty high education, secondary education levels. Collaboration. Yes, sir.
Oh, I was going to say diversity.
Oh, let me read the definition here first. Let me just kind of make it clear so people understand. Collaboration among the stakeholders. You guys coming out and attending these meetings, I talked about this at the beginning of the meeting. It's just really impressive to us that you participate in these meetings. So just Vinny's kind enough to kind of jump in here and jot it down for us so that we have a record of it and that we can put it in our strategy and in our analysis. But let's go. Diversity.
Now, to be specific,
please.
There are a lot of retirees here, and that's the diversity right there. You know, people have had, they come from all walks of life, but when you connect that with our youth, maybe utilize that diversity to help those.
So age diversity.
Yes, but at the same time, diversity in career fields and things like that.
So age and career.
I mean, I think of that sometimes as a weakness having here. I feel like a lot of people are retired and they don't care about what's going on with the younger, I think we have sometimes a disconnect.
And I agree with that, Ms. Nancy.
It could be maybe a strength and a weakness.
It's the conversations need to happen though, because when they find out that someone was a doctor or a lawyer, or just say, look, was a carpenter or a plumber, what happens is, how do I do that? Because in reality, these young people, they leave school. They got to go to Ocala. We know this. They're going to get a job over there. Well, if I got a job over there, I might as well live over there. No, you need to live in Dunnellon. You need to stay here. But why don't they stay? And I think this diversity could help us in that, in changing that dynamic.
Just bear with me, because as you talk, I have thoughts. So, okay. Next, anybody else have any other strengths?
I have something. I'm in high school and I will be talking to my classmates, and a lot of them say that they grew up in Dunnellon and they couldn't imagine living anywhere else. They love it here and they're very committed to living in Dunnellon. So I guess the children who were raised here care a lot about it.
Great, thank you for sharing that.
Loyalty.
I think to go along with that, you can say we're very connected, and I think the residents here, no matter the age, are very passionate because we're a small town. So they're very passionate and connected, and sometimes it just takes the leadership to get something started, and we have the connectivity that everybody comes out and I think supports, an effort. And even when they don't agree, you hear both ways. They're here. They're passionate about it.
But it just
leadership.
And with our kids too, because they will go out, because they're teenagers, so they're a little brain dead, no offense. But they will. Mine's brain dead. But they will. If they see that there is somebody hurting in the community, they will circle around, and they really do. I mean, it's like you said, they care enough about each other where they will raise money. They will, we had a kid that had a heart transplant, and they sold bands, and half of the kids didn't even know him, and they all wore whatever color they wore one day, and he hadn't been to school here in 3 or 4 years. So our kids really do, like you said, they really do care about the Dunnellon and each other.
So a strong sense of community?
Mm-hmm. Right. It's a small enough community where there's connections everywhere, so you feel that.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
A strength I see from kind of being on the outside looking in or new to the area is the affordability of both residential and commercial businesses.
Okay.
Are for the quality of life that's here and the infrastructure that is here, the affordability from both those ends is remarkable.
Okay, great, thank you. Everybody else kind of share that same sense? Affordability?
Of course, our natural resources are the strengths.
And I'm devil's advocate again, I feel like he's got leadership there, I feel like we lack leadership. I feel like we have a lot of good stuff going on, but that, I feel like we are, that's a vacancy that we need filled.
Okay.
And when I said that word, I meant that if there's leadership, people tend to come out and follow
Right,
the road
right.
leadership. They are more passionate when that structure is there and there's leadership, like in this very event that we're doing, you know, this
Right,
process.
that's what I
So
mean.
structured leadership, so if there's,
I understand, I don't know how to word it, but I understand what you're saying. So if there's a structured event, then people will attend, but it's hard to, you have a hard time getting leaders, like you have a hard time, is that?
It's almost that common thing where you have a volunteer organization, and you might have 100 volunteers, and it's always the same 10 that are the leaders in that group, unless there's someone they're passionate about something. It's hard to get them to go with it.
So much so that most of our clubs and organizations.
They just get burned out.
Lions Club, well, I ran the Lions Club for many years, and back in the 80s, we had 50 to 80 people in the Lions Club. It died down to 10. The more I worked, the younger generation has a different outlook with social media and stuff. Originally, in the 80s, when I came here, that was our way of business people's way of networking and serving the community. We joined the different clubs that we had, and there were 10, 15 clubs, organizations, and we all even worked together. But over time, now with social media and so on, you ask a young person, it's what's in it for me. And if there's nothing in it for me, I don't want to be part of it. I've got, my time's too valuable. And so we've lost that. I think our last, Kiwanis was our last club here that just collapsed this year. Closed the doors, yes. And for me, I don't know any other clubs that's still going.
So the only thing I would add to that, though, because I do agree with you, is that recreating that transition to get them back to joining those clubs.
That would be great. Nobody seems to have come up with a way of doing that. At least I haven't. And I understand that. But like I said, it's Kiwanis, Lions Club, and so on. The list when I came here was 10, 15. It's the differences. Again, social media has totally changed the way we did it for a reason back then. We networked. That was our way of networking as business people. They don't have to do that with social media today.
I'm going to come back to that when we get to strengths. Lonnie? We're still on the strengths.
Strengths is the historical heritage here.
It's a great point.
It's rich, it's deep, it's long. There's just a lot to dig up and focus on. We could really do something with that, especially with the rail line going through. There's a way to connect all that. And I also like the way that we're on a major road, so there's a way to catch that populace that goes through here, grab them in, when they're traveling this major road.
Great.
Something to grab them.
Young lady, tell me your name.
Megan Siegfried.
Megan. Okay.
Another strength is that we have all of the loyalty in the community because we're small. We're a small town. That's really a strength, and I know economic development can be about getting bigger, but it's not necessarily when you are already in a small town.
Good point.
I was just thinking about availability of certain services, like workforce services that come to the area on certain days.
Okay, so community services?
Yes.
Okay. What about your climate? Does anybody see the
I just thought Virginia, so yes. That should be number one.
So it often gets overlooked, but it's a very important element in the state of Florida for economic development. And just even as a SWOT element in general, don't overlook the benefits and the strength that climate has just as a strength to your overall community.
There's also over 5,000 acres in the city. There's a lot of property that needs something done there. Yeah.
Is it a strength or is it an opportunity?
Maybe other people don't want to develop, so.
If it's, because if you're used to seeing it, you don't want to see it. I mean, I'm probably the worst realtor you've ever met. I like, seeing big open spaces, even though I know I should want 50 houses to go sell. I'm not really that realtor.
I'm going to let you pick whether it's a strength, opportunity, or a threat. But 5,000
it can also be,
it's on you.
And one strength that we really do have is our location. We can get to the Gulf of Mexico in 15 minutes. We can get to Daytona in 2 hours. We can get to Orlando, Tampa, hour and a half, Jacksonville.
But you're still Dunnellon.
But we can still go put on our blue jeans and go, mud. Or we can go put on our dresses and go.
Well, I'm going to go back to something Lonnie had mentioned. We said a crossroad. So all this traffic that comes through here, that kind of, I know it seems like it's a weakness, but it's a strength because if I get you to stop for a little while.
So is that a strength or is that an opportunity?
Well, I think it's both, but I'll wait till you get to the opportunity.
Right, because there's more conversation about that.
Right. Any other strengths? Again, I'm trying to be mindful of the time. We've got about 45, 50 minutes, right? Parks. So your environmental resources.
Yeah, our trail is wonderful. Our trail is a huge strength.
What about the events that we have, like the Boomtown Days and the Jazz Up Dunnellon? Sometimes there's a lot of participation.
Yeah, your community events.
Especially with the Jazz Up Dunnellon.
So to me, that shows pride in your community, that you take the time to do all of those things.
Our state park.
Yeah, we've got parks.
Oh, okay.
Okay, how about weaknesses? Whoa, that was man, for those of you that were facing forward, I can't tell you how fast I am. When I go to the auction, I'm taking Megan with me. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
May I ask you how old you are?
16.
I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
Let's give her a hand. It's very hard to get up in front of a room, especially a room of adults. I'm very impressed.
That's like my favorite thing to do.
You hide it well. I'm very impressed. Please.
Okay. So for all of the loyalty and community with the young people, they might care and they might say they care, and we might be in my environmental science class and be talking about deforestation and be like, yeah, there's a lot of trees getting cut down, I don't like that. But they don't have motivation to do anything. So the young people, if they want to live in a small town and they want to stay here, but they don't have motivation to keep it a small town, because then they're like, oh, a new fast food restaurant, that sounds so amazing. But they don't realize that the trees are getting cut down for that fast food restaurant.
I think everyone in this room will agree it's not just young people.
Yeah, that's why the clubs are.
And lack of awareness.
Maybe lack of motivation for action? Would that be a appropriate way to describe it? Or
Yeah.
Maybe need for mentoring.
Mentoring, yeah, they just don't know how to do it, maybe.
Now you're in that.
Their parents aren't dragging them.
would need for mentoring?
I think one of the biggest things for the younger kids in the program, I'm in JRTC, So an easier thing for me is to go out to communities and meet people, but I think for some of the freshmen and sophomores, one of the biggest things they're missing is just the connections. I mean, I was looking up to meet with Grant Waldman, and he's a big entrepreneur in ecotourism, and he works with GPSC, but that's not telling the other kids who are in, who are freshmen or sophomores, they don't get the opportunities or the connections to stay in Dunnellon. So the biggest thing is these kids that get here, and this is the cow pasture, it is for farm kids, This isn't big for city kids who are used to things like Miami or New York. This is for kids who are into pig shows and who are big into
4-H.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So one of the biggest things is they don't see the connections between what Dunnellon has to offer for younger kids.
So again, so it's that need for mentorship, so it kind of ties in together with that. Yes, sir.
So this is a Florida issue, and a lot of other cities, such as Crystal River, is dealing with it. But one of our weaknesses is short-term rentals, and so if we're trying to build up more ecotourism and have people come to Dunnellon and stay here longer, you have to have facilities for it. And so we're lucky enough to have a new hotel and stuff like that. But Dunnellon and its surrounding area, we have the benefit of strength of having a lot of homes, and they are very affordable. But with short-term rentals, a lot of those, and a lot of cities are experiencing that, the more they grow, it takes away from our hotels, and it detracts from people that want to invest in more lodging. And it's a proven fact that those type of people come with cases of beer and a car full of groceries, and they don't eat out, and they don't support a lot of our local businesses.
So the Airbnb type facilities?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Airbnb and VRBOs and stuff like that. But more than that, as our residential areas become short-term rentals, then I've seen a lot of neighborhoods where you start losing the camaraderie in the small town that really makes Dunnellon. Because Dunnellon, everybody loves that small town feel. But if all the homes start being somebody that's there for a couple of days, you don't know anyone.
And that basically has come from the legislature getting involved, not allowing the local governments to regulate and at least control what they want. Have them, but have some enforcement of what the rules have to be. And then I think you could find that medium where you can have them, but yet they don't overtake, by putting time limits and stuff like
River is
that.
working through eliminating.
Yeah, so I see it in my day-to-day practice as a planner. I mean, I'm constantly writing regulations for all the communities that I work in that limit the amount. If you want some draft language, if you're interested in looking at that, I can show you some examples of what other communities are doing.
The problem is
We
we
need
didn't
to
have an
find
ordinance.
short-term rentals, though. I mean,
Right.
Airbnb is one thing, that's where they come for a week, like you said, with a party, 2 days for bears. But on the other hand, we have a big population. I run a property management company. We have a big population where people that come here from January through April, that's short-term, anything under 6 months is a short-term rental. And so
That's a different conversation.
And that's not
Yeah.
a weakness, that's a
well,
strength.
that's what I said, it's a strength, so, but it does fall under short-term rental, so, there's got to be a definition
Sure.
or defining what short-term you're talking about.
Vacation
rental.
We didn't have legislation in place and time to be able to do regulations, so we're not allowed to
So
make
you can't touch it, right? Yes.
Right.
Lana?
I think one of our weaknesses is a lack of diversity of businesses. A diversity of businesses where you reach across a lot. Entertainment, we're really weak there.
Yeah. So one of the ideas, one of the initiatives that I have drafted for your strategic plan is really kind of leaning towards giving people more of the experiential idea. So coming here and actually walking away with an experience, not just coming here and going to a restaurant, but coming here and feeling like you've done something. And I feel like I heard that over the first 2 meetings. Did I pick that up correctly? Like you don't want, more than just the tubing, which I talked about, but I feel like there's something in there. So I'm still working through that, but I wanted to bring that up tonight, and I feel like that was something, correct me if I'm wrong, but that just popped into my head just now, but I feel like that was something that I've been hearing here, voices in my head or something, but that's, am I right?
It kind of goes back to, we talked about last time about a theme,
Right.
like the phosphator or that type of thing where they come and they have an experience.
Right.
I go to Helen, Georgia, I have an experience, okay?
Right.
I visited this little town with a Swiss
Right.
Chateau type thing.
Hey, you should go there.
I go from
because-
outdoor, I have an experience.
Right.
They come to Dunnellon and they're not, other than the rivers, tubing, that's a fun thing, but we have little to no youth activity here.
That's
for
a
the youth.
huge weakness.
And that's a big weakness that we have.
I've always referred to Dunnellon as like a drive-through city.
Right.
It's like-
Okay, so I heard that correctly.
That's
Yes.
what it is.
I also think we get ecotourism, we think of things for people to do. I'm kind of like Megan, I don't want to see a bunch of fast food things. I think we need quality.
Right.
Yes.
So I got that message as well.
We need to have like a community playhouse where people from out of town can come and see a play that our community is starring in. And we can have a quilt museum, or we can have some wonderful something made for, that we have little mom and pop businesses that are of quality, that aren't big box that look like every other town in America. We don't want to look like those other towns. We have unique people and we need to show off our abilities and
Okay, I feel like I'm on the right path for you. I'm gonna take Marianne.
Yes.
The biggest weakness I see is when you come in on one of our, we have only one major highway. So, yeah, east-west, we have one highway, you have another road that goes north-south. There are a lot of things that are not visually attractive. The parklands are beautiful. Our park down there with the walking trails through it is stunning, and I see people, because I walk there frequently, I have seen people from all over the world. But the people that are semi-local are just accustomed to it. The weakness is that we don't make the town visually attractive. And we are working on that, but we don't have a visually attractive town. And I'm sorry, I hope I don't insult anybody, but if you come up from the east on 484, there is a section of town that certainly would turn you on. Part of it is due to the fact that there are businesses there that should not be in that situation. And part of it is due to the fact that we have a place that we were told for years not to overbuild, to keep our small community small, to make the businesses small and individual. And then somebody, somewhere along the way, decided a 40-foot high building by what was supposed to be 3 lots long, could be converted into one piece of property, and it does not suit with the kind of impression that I hear everyone here saying they want made of the community. So I would like to see us keep that in mind in the future and not remake the same set of mistakes.
So one of the things I heard pretty clearly at the last meeting was the idea of the charrette. Remember we talked about that? The charrette was the idea of coming together and doing like a couple of days worth of planning for the community and kind of mapping out like what you really want the community to look like. So I've woven that into one of the strategic initiatives. So I think that Marianne might kind of hit on some of what you're talking about there, really kind of sitting down as a community and saying, look, we can't change the past, but let's look at the future.
We can change some of the past, because some of the aesthetic is brand new to town now, and that's what needs to be corrected. So some of that needs to and can be corrected.
Refer to weakness number 1.
Question, isn't Main Street, and it's been so many years since we've done Main Street, but doesn't Main Street kind of help?
You can help with some of that.
That's what I thought.
Yes. Yes.
He has artists come in and do drawings of East Pennsylvania Avenue back when we had Main Street. And you take the antique lights, Dave Myers, I think I saw him come in somewhere. we went, got.
Yeah, my aunt got them from.
The antique lights, the bridge, they had originally put a chain link fence on the sides of the 484 bridge. That was taken down and we put up wrought iron in place of the chain link fence. Well, we just keep kids, it was the aesthetic look, so. Chain link fence versus the wrought iron.
I do apologize for you guys having to put the fence up.
And,
My dad was doing it way before you.
It was me.
A weakness that Dunnellon has is lack of a swimming pool. Swimming pools are great community centers.
Yes.
We constantly lose students, high school students going to Dunnellon, going to Ocala to utilize aquatic facilities. And I've even met people who grew up in this town who don't know how to swim and are afraid of the river, okay? So, and I'm aware that we've had some planning for this done by Bobby James, along with the Boys and Girls Club. He had plans and drawings of aquatic center that's been part of the Boys and Girls Club. And it would be a great community center for older people who don't want to swim in a cold river.
So several of you have reached out to me privately about a swimming pool /YMCA /community center. So, I mean, we can kind of make that a combo if you like. Ms. Dawn?
I think the key is why we have some of these, is that overall, we're not an affluent community. I think the median income is less than $30,000, so we don't have the funding. We have to beg, borrow, and steal to try to get some of these things, and that always doesn't happen. So, I think that overall, we just don't have a high tax base.
Right. Well, hopefully, the economic development strategy helps to bring in some of those funds. When you implement some of these, it brings in businesses, and that in turn helps to raise some of those funds for you. I think Ms. Janet had some comments first. Do you mind if he adds on to Don's comment?
Just to add on that, because the tax base is small, because there's only, 200 homes? Is that all there is, roughly? It's not that many, but it supports, the huge amount of population in the area, but everyone relies on a small tax base, which really heavily burdens on the business owners.
Right, true.
Because the taxes, the homes, if they're only a $50,000 home, you do exemption, there's no taxes coming in. So we have that problem all the time, that's why I was asking about annexation, if we ever want to expand and increase that tax base.
So you were talking about aesthetics as you're coming into town from the east on 484. The state of Florida has land, and since you're going to be talking with the state,
we are going to be talking with the state, because I heard everybody commit to coming, with the exception maybe of the time, right? Is it Jan? What's the Nancy.
I booked a flight to Atlanta when I thought we were doing it on March 12th, so I won't be here.
With the exception,
Well, there's some state land there that has had storm damage for at least 20 years. And I spoke to the state of Florida, somebody in Swiftmud, and I said, what is the management plan for that? And she laughed. Okay, so I told her that particular land, and she just laughed. She said, it's not us, is basically what she said. It's another department in the state. 20 years, and that storm damage, those sand pines have been
I think you talked about those lands, right?
I showed them to you, and then you go further down, and there's a power pole that's leaning, that was hit, and you've got water that's backed up because a road was put near the river there, and you've got a detention pond on the other side of the road that is constantly getting trash, garbage, and vegetation, and being sprayed with poison. So what kind of presentation is that coming into our town? Every time I'm just like shaking my head.
Right. And because it's on state lands, it's kind of out of your control
It's
it's not presenting the city. So it's interesting, because I just pulled my list, I had kind of jotted down some thoughts, in preparing for the SWOT. I was like, what if I come to do this SWOT analysis and nobody has anything that they want to put on the table?
She's right.
I was like, I kind of need to say, okay, what, if I was going to sit down and do this, and I show up tonight and nobody wants to put anything out here, I need to kind of have, so city image, which I think is speaking to what you said, right? And this is where I also have the lack of experiential retail venues, which is what I was saying earlier, that, you know, that's kind of lacking here. So I feel like I think this is kind of like, I'm hearing what you guys are saying over these communities.
Sandpine is not the best choice for that land, and it was planted a long time ago. If the state is managing that as lands that are gonna be for trails and conservation, I mean, certainly in 20 years, they should have come up with something and done something to improve that land.
All right, good point. Okay, thank you, Jen. Okay, Ms. Megan, this is the last one, and then we're gonna move on to our opportunities.
Okay, another weakness would be lack of environmental awareness. That's basically something.
Good. Good point.
We have one more weakness, because I think it's very important.
Only because Ms. Valerie she was rooting for you there.
A lot of those things dealing with business and also with residential renovations on the historic side are all driven by parking. As a builder developer, I come in here and want to do a project. I'm told I can't because I don't have parking. What do? The building sits empty.
And you can't leave it.
And again, there's no way to solve it.
I didn't see it because my red pen ran out of ink and I put it in green. Look, I'm going to show you. It's under my business in green, lack of parking. So it is, I agree with you.
The city of Winter Garden built a parking garage and that place thrives.
Where?
I mean, the city of Winter Garden.
Oh, I've seen that.
It exploded. It's beautiful.
That would bring in a lot of money, and then it would help out business for people to do their travel.
All right. Okay.
What city are you referring to?
All right. So that.
They have anything.
Every weekend, they had a blues barbecue festival, and that's what I'm talking about, like, the snow crew, the bike trail, everything. A 10-story parking lot.
Yeah.
City Hall.
Okay, sorry, I just need to make a note there. I don't want to forget your point, Dan, about talking to the water management district about those trees. Opportunities.
Parking. So we're in Sunshine State, so this is something that should be happening all over, is solar. And I've done quite a bit of research on community solar, and there can be co-ops, or there's all sorts of different websites for it, that you can work with them, different organizations to get solar. So solar for all of Dunnellon, because that would be less expensive eventually for people to have clean energy. And, with co-ops, I think that Dunnellon has like an art club that I've heard good things about, so if that's something that would work in Dunnellon.
Thank you.
This young lady's inside my head over here. All right, I'm gonna go back to your vision. When you said community rich and ecotourism, under opportunities.
It's our vision, first of all.
It is.
We all agree.
It's all of ours.
Nobody said no tonight, so it's
What
our
Dan
vision.
just mentioned about the state lands, what is the opportunity to get them to help us integrate with what they have over there, with what we want to do in Dunnellon, and we kind of wrap it with this bike trails, and you go over to the state lands to do something with solar power. This place could be the center of learning.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. I mean, I'm a farmer.
Are you coming on April 4th?
I'm trying to get me on work.
This is the opportunity.
I'm talking to my boss. I'm right over here.
This
This place could be a learning lab, right? I think it's really, really cool, right? I got other words for it. What you did with the top of that building with the solar panels. That worked. And then people come to us to say, this is how you do it. Yeah. You want to talk about an opportunity.
This is the destination that you're talking about,
and
right?
while you're here, all
Why
these
you
other
come to
opportunities
Dunnellon?
exist. Get on our trails. Let someone show you the history of this town on a walking tour, a bike tour, a horse riding tour. There's just so many opportunities, but I go back to what was said earlier about structured leadership. You build it, they will come. I saw it with the garden club. We built the garden at the Boys and Girls Club. The right people asking, for certain people to do things, it works.
Who talked about the giant ball of string at the last
That was
meeting?
me and here.
Okay, so this is like the giant light bulb, right? All it takes is that one thing, and then you've got a reason for people to come.
And then we don't have to change our treasures in our town. We can maintain them, we can protect them.
This is your opportunity to tie it all together. You are completely on the right path. Thank you, both of you. Lonnie,
We,
I got you next.
we have a large percentage of vacant land in the city.
5,000 acres, I heard.
Well, it's not all vacant.
Okay.
A large percentage of it is.
I got him in the back and then I got
Huge opportunity to turn waste into wealth, composting. And maybe create some type of living, breathing museum for people to come check out and learn about all different types of sustainability applications.
Right, we talked about the learning opportunities at the last meeting.
Okay, yeah.
Right, remember? We talked about it. You
Yes.
mentioned it at the last meeting. I got him up here first.
I'm gonna go back to the opportunity for solar power. We've been partnering with American Solar Factory to try to get solar into this area, residential. People are terrified of solar power. I've spoken to probably 60 residents. You mentioned solar power and they are immediately shunned.
Terrified in what way? Just
Political, they want an immediate return on their investment. That's essentially it. If anybody has any questions about solar power, I'd be happy to answer them. But it's just a negative outlook on it so far.
Ties in with the lack of environmental awareness.
Right, correct. People see it, I would say not a lot of people look at it as environmental awareness. They look at it as an investment, money, and they don't see that quick return, and they're off of it.
Which is crazy, because we're in Florida.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
Ages of those people, because at my age, I would love to have solar power. I will never I'm not looking to invest in making money off of it. I would never be able to reap back what it cost me.
Correct.
I had plans to solarize my entire roof. Unfortunately, the only place we could get this stuff was from China, and I have a son that does this, okay? And he had ordered enough to do 2 houses, and we were really excited. We were gonna get both of them on solar. And it's difficult to get, at least at that time, to get the quality that you needed to last long enough for it to at least pay for itself.
Correct.
Most of us, if we could get reliable solar power, I don't know about anybody else, but I'd jump at it.
Our panels have a 25-year guarantee. If they fall under 10% usage over those years, they are replaced.
I appreciate the conversation,
That's a whole
but I'm gonna rope this back in here, but, sorry, but thank you. Dawn?
Another opportunity is just our partnership with other government. Like you heard in the presentation from Eminent, they are begging us to jump on the bandwagon for ecotourism. They've initiated it, they got advertisement out there. So just putting some resources and volunteers in place. There's a whole avenue that we can benefit from there of Eminence being a leader in the ecotourism.
Ma'am?
A couple of things that you had earlier up on your screen, the young entrepreneurs and professionals, I feel like that's something that we could implement, and helping out with the, organizing a career fair with the high school would be something that we could do too.
Thank you.
And to piggyback what Julie said, if we could develop a community center, then some of our retirees with those careers could help mentor.
We've got amazing retirees here in all walks and all lives. Amazing people here.
And I think our local workforce would be happy to help coordinate and job fairs and stuff. Yes.
Something that we haven't
I was reading something the other day about all of the, since we're in ecotourism and green type of energies, something that in our area there isn't a lot of, and you have to kind of put an app on it to find, are electric charging stations for cars. And that, you know, if they're out, you know,
And you're at the hotel, there's 3 at the hotel.
is there?
Yeah, and there's gonna be one at Purple's house.
Well, and the city put in a grant application.
That is, I mean, that is a, because they literally put in apps, and the article I was reading was like, oh my God, I've only got 25 more miles to go before I run out of, not gas, but an electric outlet. And so that, I mean, we don't have to have a lot of them, but again, we have these areas that we could definitely put, and I did not realize they had another suggestion. So that was in EV.
This kind of treads into threats, but it's also an opportunity. We have increasing levels of nitrates accumulating in the Rainbow Springs and surrounding areas because of runoff from fertilizer, the septic tanks. One way that we can mitigate some of that waste and attract people would be to create some type of aquaponic museum or aquaponic farms where you use the waste produced in this water to grow fruits and vegetables and feed the community with high quality, nutrient dense food that is also a learning experience in itself. So aquaponics is a huge opportunity in this area.
We did that out of it.
Thank you. Sir?
I just wanted to highlight that under opportunities, as far as undeveloped properties, in particular, we have some stellar undeveloped riverfront. And those opportunities need to be taken advantage of as far as providing access for the public, or else they're active. Once they're gone, they're gone.
All right. Anything else? Any other opportunities you want to share? Yes, ma'am.
We have a CRA fund.
Okay.
So that,
That is, and that's one of our strengths as well.
CRA fund.
But it can also be a threat because the state tries to play it every
year. Every once in a while. About this time of year?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to threats. We got about 20 minutes left, and I'm sure if I look ahead in my own presentation, I've got more than enough. Threats. Okay, Megan, bring us in.
There's a lot of threats currently with people.
Speak up.
There's a lot of threats currently with people wanting to develop Dunnellon more, and like the potential toll roads, which now I know that the governor has said that there won't be any more toll roads, but potential roads and fast food restaurants wanting to come in, and people are trying to say that Dunnellon is a good economic investment. That in itself can be a threat.
Uncontrolled growth.
uncontrolled.
Growth.
So I want to build on that part about the roads, is that this area is actually earmarked for some major road growth, whether we want it or not. And unfortunately, it looks like it might be a transportation triangle surrounding this community, which would wipe out some of the economical or the ecological things we're thinking of. So we really don't have any control of that other than voicing our opinions and trying to do things, but it's going to come, and we're trying to fight it, but it's uncertain.
There's going to be a compressor station in Dunnellon in May if we don't do something about it. For the fact,
This is what we talked
It's
about.
going to be in every
I mentioned it.
This is the one that we talked about.
It's over on 200, but it's called Dunnellon Compressor Station, so it stigmatizes our town. If we're trying to do an ecotourism town, having a compressor station named for this town is not a good idea. Y'all might want to talk to Sable Tribal and tell them to name it something else.
and this might be a little funny, but I'm gonna say it's a threat to me. Wild hogs roaming the community.
That's when you call your local Dunnellon trapper.
It's not always a threat, it could be a good market opportunity.
That's gonna go number one on the threat list when I put this together. I'll put that number one on the threat list.
How did it say general declining population?
Yes, sir.
Wait, declining population, is that for the area or for the city?
For the city.
Because the city is declining and all the outskirts are growing, and we're knowing it now.
Well, but she's talking about the age group. Is it, it's just like in a church, it's just like in our church has a declining age
Right.
population.
We just lost number. Hey, no, I'm sorry.
I have this gentleman back here first.
I think our depressed economy threatens all the opportunities that we wish to achieve. As long as people are making minimum wage and can only eat at fast food restaurants and can only go to big box stores, that we will never achieve the opportunities that we seek.
Yes.
6-hour work days.
I think a threat, I hope it's not realized, is the fact that the city of Dunnellon could become Marion County. Without an increase in tax base and without growing revenue, it's a threat that it could.
Megan?
Yeah, I'm thinking very long term with this one, as in my generation wanting to stay here. Sea level rise will be an issue because it's pushing more people towards Central Florida. Like, one of my teachers was just saying how some friends of his from somewhere on the coast, they just moved here because they can't live on the coast anymore, so people will start moving into the middle of Florida as that becomes more of an issue. So too much of a population.
Well,
Water in general.
that's one thing that wasn't touched on is with all this building and all this coming into this area is the native wildlife here will be under threat.
You mean
Declining populations of native wildlife.
And we have deer in our yard, we have big turtles laying their eggs.
right now?
Oh, yeah,
Right now.
not fox, but, you know.
And the wild hogs are in the city limits.
And the wild hog and
But you don't want that. But you're saying you want the deer and the, so I'm just making the distinction.
I was told
She doesn't want
I'm
the
afraid to come
hogs.
out my house.
I understand. I understand. You want
But
the
the
deer, you
deer
don't
are
want.
friendly.
Right, I just.
And all
Hogs are mean, deer are
Got
friendly.
it, got it.
Miss Anita.
I'm afraid they're wild.
So I wanted to add on the threat list, the social media,
I
right?
was gonna say social media.
So I perceive that as a threat that, you know, we've kind of lost, and I mean, I see this just day in and day out. People don't communicate anymore, which is again why I'm thrilled that all of you are here spending another 2 hours with us this evening, because we just don't have these kind of discussions. And I thank you for your openness and, you know, putting stuff on the table, because nobody wants to have these conversations, right? Everybody does everything with their phones and on their computers and behind closed doors. So thank you for being open.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, as a threat, housing and specifically apartments. I go back to the younger people and why they leave. Again, initially I have a job somewhere else, but the housing that would kind of go with that, is there any in the city of Dunnellon which would increase the tax base if there were more?
Well, there's the dinner bell, you know,
Yes.
whatever it's called nowadays. And there's very small amounts.
And that's the reason I asked, limited inventory, would that kind of?
And even for a rental, for I mean, because when I was young, I think I got my first cute little nothing house for like $250 a month. Thank you, Chuck Dillon. But now, it's, I mean, what, 800, 900, 1,000, I mean, I don't know how my daughter would go outside and get a job tomorrow, working and going to college.
Hey, could she find an apartment in Dunnellon City, in the city of Dunnellon?
Okay, well, there must be some, but, you know, even if she wants just a cute house, there's not housing, so maybe an apartment or something, but, and the other, that one's good, but also the threat of our history. I know our history is a strength, but because of our young people and the aging out, our history is also leaving, you know, unless we keep the boomtown, you know, the boomtown days. Why do we have boomtown? I mean, go ask half the kids why we have boomtown. They're like, oh, that's something we do in April. I mean, they don't know why we were the phosphate industry. So it's a strength, but it's also a threat that it's not going to be, I guess it's that verbal history passed on to the next generations.
So again, I think that gets woven into the initiatives component where it gets passed on through a historical task force. Anything else? We got about 10, 15 minutes.
Our river, the quality of our water.
The quality of the water.
And just availability of water. If wants to steal our water, or whoever else wants to steal our water. And we need more housing, and where's that going to come from?
It's one of those very circles.
I'm going to take Lonnie, and then I'll take you in the back.
I think there's a threat that we're going to take this information and stagnate.
Again?
Well, that's a threat because it's happening. I want everyone to be aware that I don't want this to be a fourth time. No, it's just a threat because it's happening. So yes, I want that to be a threat that we always keep in mind, that we don't want this to happen again. We want to take this knowledge that we're learning and really come together, make it work this time.
Like I said, I commend the city for actually asking the state to put it in their grant as a requirement, because this is not typical for it to be part of the Competitive Florida Partnership Program. You know, when Lonnie's like, yeah, can you put this in there? I'm like, do what? Like, this is not what this program is for. And he's like, yeah, we want to do a SWOT analysis. I'm like, sure, we can do it. So I got a gentleman in the back, and then I'll come to you, Janet, and then we're going to kind of move on here and wrap things up.
In thinking about the history of Dunnellon and why it was a boomtown, you know, it was a discovery, a scientific discovery, a mineral that was found that had tremendous applications for farming and for bombs, ammunition, and all that. So, taking that and keeping that in mind, that they took all that material and sent it outward. Imagine if it had been kept here and invested in the local lands, in the community, how much of a thriving, wonderful, fertile place this would be. So we could actually take the waste produced by all the businesses and homes and everything and turn it into compost to actually bring the fertility back and to, you know, create that vision that, you know, I often think about what would have happened if we didn't just sell it all and kind of invested it here. So there's that, but it's a threat that we don't know much about composting. We don't know much about environmental sustainability. So there's an opportunity. I don't know if it's written down, environmental ignorance.
We've got lack of environmental awareness under weakness.
That sounds better.
Thank you. Okay, Janet, you're going to bring us home. Get a good one.
Traffic. We have problems with traffic, just on the ranch. I mean, we have accident after accident, and we always have them go through the fence. All the time, when somebody got killed in December and such, you know, going through the fence. People drive like idiots passing on 484. We've got the threat of the toll road. We also have the threat of the north turnpike extension going through. So it's not just one. But traffic, now, I know there are a lot of people, there's a lot of traffic, but I don't know, I mean, we gotta do better at herding the people. We herd cows and we manage the cows, but they're a lot easier than people, and the traffic situation is really bad. Come up with good ways to manage it, because it's a bad threat on the community. Everybody suffers from the bad traffic around here.
I said she was gonna be my last one.
I just wanted to do a
I
quick
see you
back
sneaking
on
in
that.
there.
Years ago, it was identified throughout the community a desire to keep East Pennsylvania a smaller two-lane road, not have it turn into some mega highway. And as those 20 years have gone past, now we're starting to see traffic backing up there. And we explored solutions for that, and it was difficult to find a good solution for that. So I think we're coming to the point, some point where we're going to have to either do what we don't want, make it a big highway, or find some other way for people to go in.
Well, I think that's a pretty robust list of items to create the SWAT. I want to thank you again for being open there, and I hope the city's happy with that list. So let's move on. We got try and see if we can wrap it up here.
And I just like the positiveness of even our weaknesses are on threats. That makes sense.
Yeah, so the goal that comes out of the SWOT analysis is then to look at particularly your threats and your weaknesses and see how you can move those up into opportunities and into strengths. It's not to focus on them as being negatives, but really to look at those and trying to move those up into how you can cross those off and make them next level as opposed to just letting them stagnate. So I'm hopeful that the city can take that information now and move those into the next level. So you've seen this before. This is now moving us into the next level of the project schedule. It gets a little strange here. We're moving down to the bottom part of the schedule. I say strange because my dates are a little bit odd at the bottom. You'll see the asset mapping happens on the 4th, and then the city council workshops are the 3rd, and then the 30th. Normally I wouldn't have them split up like that, but as you heard, our state friends have hopscotched around our dates, and rather than moving this around too much, I let the city council workshop slide there, if you will, as it was. So we will have a city council workshop date on April 3rd, and that's driven by the fact that we have a deliverable due to the state on April the 5th? Yeah, I'm a little bit busy the first week of April. And so that deliverable is a summary of these 3 community conversations. So it's put on us to take what we've heard at these 3 meetings and put it into a document that covers what you have told us at these meetings. And there's some very specific criteria that we have to address. And so I offered to the city to come back and give a presentation to the city council. I would encourage as many of you that aren't completely worn out of hearing me talk to come to that workshop and hear what we have to say. But it's just a courtesy to the city council to present this to them before we send it off to the state on the 5th. But I will be here on the 3rd, and then I will hopefully see all of you that committed to coming on April the 4th for the asset mapping exercise, and then we will send that deliverable to the state on the 5th. And then we'll be back here for another workshop on the 30th, which will be a presentation to the city council on the asset mapping exercise itself. And then the final city council meeting, which will be the adoption of the formal economic development strategic plan, not element, the economic development strategic plan on June the 10th. So you'll get a break from me for the entire month of May. But that's kind of the schedule as I think we have it laid out, Lonnie, and I'll talk a little bit. I think I think all of you have participated in the meetings to this point, right? Is there anybody that doesn't know at this point what the asset mapping exercise is? Okay, I'm not gonna waste your time.
Quick question: would that report be posted online so we can see what you're submitting to the state?
I think Lonnie pretty much puts everything that I give to him online, right?
Yeah,
All the
it'll-
presentations and everything, so, yeah, so
It
the,
would be on the workshop agenda.
right, so yes. And it's not super long, it's just, it's a 3 or 4 or 5 pages, just a summary of these 3 meetings, and it just kind of addresses what we've heard, and as I mentioned, there's some very specific things that the state requires that we have to address. But there's our guy, Josh Askey. You'll finally get to meet Josh. You've seen him by face and name only, but he will be here on April the 4th again. We highly would encourage you to RSVP. You can do it through the city, or you can reach out to me directly. Drivers, I think we may be okay with drivers. Don and Lonnie and I talked, and if there's anybody that is...
You know, we have a couple of city vehicles. We'd be glad to have some employees. Troy, you're here, right? We have the Yukon. We have the Xterra. I'll volunteer to drive. I got a Highlander. If anybody else has a rather large vehicle that they'd like to volunteer, you know, I think we had Rich volunteer, but since we changed the date, they have a large vehicle, and I think you said they can no longer do that.
Maybe we can reach out to, like, and I'll also, like, the people that do, Nathan does the...
It's really just, they want 4 or 5 people in each vehicle, because we're gonna go out
Different places.
So, and that's it. And look at that, we got 2 minutes, so.
Can you go back to your vision? I just wanted to see if there was one little tweak that you could do to the vision.
Thought we agreed on this, Julie.
Okay, well, see how that you have history in the subject, but you don't really have history in the object at the end. So what if, where it says to enjoy the outdoors, it said to enjoy its heritage and the outdoors while protecting natural, or its past and the outdoors, just to get the history in both sections. I used to be an English teacher, so.
I like the word heritage.
She gave you a B+.
She gave me an A.
And then she took it away from you.
We went from an A+.
This is extra
to an
credit.
A. To enjoy its heritage.
And the outdoors.
And prepare for an awesome future together.
I like it. Thank you very much for your comment. Thank you. Anybody else?
Just before we go, I just think maybe needs a hand of applause.
That she speaks out like that.
Yes.
I have one suggestion too. Those of you who filled in the sign-in sheet, I know that it was you can do your phone number or your email. I would like if you could do your email. It just gives us a better way of reaching out to you and doing kind of blanket emails. And if you just put your phone number, it just makes it a little harder to contact. It's okay, but I prefer if you could do your email too.
It's a better opportunity for you to reach out to it.
Yes, sir.
There was a little tease earlier in your presentation.
I'm sorry.
There was a little bit of a tease earlier in your presentation that the officials that will be coming in April would lead us to how we could apply for grants to get some of the infrastructure or other programs going. Could you just fill in a little bit about what that process might be?
Yeah, so part of what they do, part of what the state does when they come for the asset mapping is they're going to provide linkages. They're going to come look at your parks, for example, and if they see that there are opportunities for community development block grants that you are not taking advantage of, which I know that the city of Dunnellon takes advantage of. I mean, you've done some really great park improvements, right, through the CDBG program. So it's not the best example, right, but your work hard. So excuse me. But
if you could think of them all, we wouldn't stay back.
Well, exactly. But they'll provide, like, I don't know all the grants that are available through the state Division of Historic Resources, for example. But they may come and say, hey, there are these 3 grants that are available that could help that you can apply for that can help fund this project, and they can connect you with that resource. They can look and see stuff that we're just not familiar with, that you may not be familiar with, but that having them physically come here, or they can put you in touch with the person that deals with that resource. That's the beauty of having them come here and physically look at your assets and be able to make those linkages. That's the crux of the entire program.
You are talking to the guys that's probably the best grant writer in town.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm saying that people that are in these different cars riding around and mingling with the state officials might have a project in mind that they think would be of great value.
That's great. And so we come back together as a group.
Yeah.
So we start off the day as a group, and then we spread out, and then we come back together and talk again as a group.
Right. Okay.
Does that help? Does that help a little bit?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Real quick, just if you missed the first two, or if you're going to miss the next one, you can look up on YouTube and find these. All three of these are going to be up on the internet. They were live streamed tonight as well. So just
Under what?
well, we're going to have it under the Chambers page, but you can also go under Al's TV Dunnellon, and it'll show you all of the videos and even the other things that has happened in Dunnellon.
And thank you so much for doing that.
No problem.
Thank you. That is an asset. I just wonder before we break up, I think it's always important. We have a number of our board members here that attend meetings, and we were at a council meeting last night as well, but they're back here participating in this. I just wondered if you serve on a board, and I know we have Marianne Hilton, and we have Louise Kinney. Can you guys stand up and just be recognized and introduce yourself? I just think for those that are here, we just want to give an applause to all of our elected officials and volunteers. Why don't you guys stand?
Brenda D'Arville, I'm chairman of the Dunnellon Planning Commission.
Marianne Hilton, and I'm on the Dunnellon Planning Commission.
Louise Kinney, Planning Commission.
And we have any other board members? Oh, sorry, too. Dang, that's right.
Historical board.
Are you now our new chairman? Oh, we don't know that yet. Okay, and then we have our elected officials too, if you guys want to.
Anita Wiggers of the Wild Hog.
I'm Bill White, and I was here to listen tonight and not to speak.
And I'm Linda Fernandez on council.
She's our new.
And we want to thank you again for the opportunity to help facilitate this program for you. It's been our pleasure to work on it. And we're hopeful that we're on the right path, and your continued participation seems to tell us that we're headed in the right direction, but we look forward to seeing you hopefully at the workshop on the 3rd, but if not, definitely on the 4th for the asset mapping. And I got one more question there, and then if we're free to let you go home and enjoy the rest of your evening.
I felt this is really important to share today. Through the United States Green Building Council, there's grant opportunities for development in LEED certification and LEED development, leadership in energy and environmental design. So I think that would be tremendous to have here in Dunnellon as spearheading the sustainability movement, is if we could get some grants from the USGBC, and I work with the USGBC, so if anybody wants to know more about that.
Thanks for sharing. Good night.